What if one of Hollywood's most powerful love stories was never meant to be seen? No photos, no confirmations, no denials. While the world watched Tom Cruise and Ana de Armas separately, something was happening in complete silence. Not because it wasn't real, but because revealing it could have changed everything. This isn't a love story the cameras missed. It's one they were never allowed to see. No red carpet debut. No Instagram posts. No official confirmation. And yet, the rumors were everywhere. When whispers about Tom Cruise and Ana de Armas first began circulating, the internet didn't just react, it erupted. Fan pages, entertainment blogs, and social media timelines filled with speculation overnight. Two global superstars, two completely different public images, and one question that refused to disappear. Why did they keep their relationship so secret? In an era where celebrity romances are often announced louder than movie premieres, their silence felt unusual, almost calculated. Hollywood is built on visibility, public love stories, viral moments, and carefully staged appearances. But this time, there was none of that. No red carpet hand-holding, no shared interviews, no carefully worded confirmations. Instead, there was only silence, and that silence spoke louder than any headline. Fans began noticing subtle signs: private dinners away from flashing cameras, quiet meetings in low-profile locations, and carefully timed appearances that never quite overlapped publicly. Paparazzi photos were rare and always distant. Nothing was obvious. Nothing was accidental. Every move seemed intentional, as if both stars understood exactly how much to reveal and how much to protect. This wasn't secrecy born out of fear. It felt like secrecy born out of choice. Hollywood thrives on exposure. Yet both Tom Cruise and Ana de Armas appeared to be moving in the opposite direction. And that contradiction only made the story more fascinating. The less they shared, the more people wanted to know. Mystery replaced confirmation. Curiosity replaced clarity. And mystery, in Hollywood, is rare. For decades, Tom Cruise has lived his life under constant scrutiny. Every relationship, every belief, every personal decision has been dissected in public. Experience taught him a difficult truth. Once something becomes public, it no longer belongs to you. It belongs to the world. Ana de Armas, on the other hand, was navigating a different kind of pressure. Rising rapidly in the industry, she was transitioning from a talented actress to a global star. With that rise came attention, sometimes unwanted, often overwhelming. She had already seen how quickly personal stories could overshadow professional achievements. Together, their silence started to make sense. This wasn't about hiding something scandalous. It was about protecting something fragile. To understand the secrecy, we have to look beyond gossip headlines and tabloid speculation. We have to look at who Tom Cruise and Ana de Armas truly are when the cameras aren't rolling. When the lights fade, the noise disappears, and the world stops watching. Because sometimes the most important stories aren't the ones shouted from red carpets. They're the ones whispered in silence. Tom Cruise is not just a movie star, he is a Hollywood institution. His name alone represents decades of box office dominance, cultural influence, and cinematic legacy. For more than 40 years, he hasn't simply acted in films. He has defined eras of Hollywood. But with that level of fame comes a cost few people truly understand. For decades, Tom Cruise's life has been constantly watched, analyzed, and judged. Every major decision, professional or personal, became public property. His marriages, divorces, beliefs, friendships, and private struggles were discussed on television panels, dissected in tabloids, and debated by strangers across the world. At times, his personal life overshadowed even his biggest film successes. Every relationship he ever entered turned into global news. Headlines focused less on love and more on speculation, less on truth and more on assumptions. The world wasn't just interested, it felt entitled to know everything. And over time, that kind of exposure changes a person. Living under a microscope doesn't simply affect how others see you, it reshapes how you protect yourself. Tom Cruise learned a powerful lesson, not overnight, but through years of intense public scrutiny. Privacy is protection. It became clear that once something personal becomes public, it no longer belongs to you. It becomes a story twisted, reframed, and consumed. And Tom had already seen how quickly love could turn into controversy, and how silence could be misinterpreted as something dangerous or secretive. So he adapted. After years of being overexposed, Tom Cruise became extremely careful about his personal life. He stopped oversharing. He stepped away from public romance drama. He closed the emotional doors that tabloids once walked through freely. Interviews became guarded. Appearances became strategic. Access became limited. For Tom, keeping a relationship private isn't about hiding something scandalous. It's about control. Control over the narrative. So his story isn't rewritten by rumors. Control over his peace, so his private life isn't constantly invaded. Control over what the world gets to see and what it does. And single quotes in an industry that thrives on visibility. Choosing silence is not weakness. It's discipline. It's experience speaking louder than impulse. And that's why, when Tom Cruise chooses to keep something quiet, it means more than people realize. It signals importance, intention, value, because he knows exactly what happens when the world is invited into something personal, and what it takes away in return for someone who has lived almost his entire adult life in the spotlight. Privacy isn't a luxury. It's survival. And if Tom Cruise decided that a connection deserves silence rather than headlines, it wasn't accidental. It was deliberate. Armas was at a very different point in her journey, one defined not by legacy, but by momentum. She was no longer just a promising newcomer or a rising star. She had crossed that invisible line into becoming a global sensation, with critically acclaimed performances and international recognition. Her career wasn't simply growing, it was accelerating at a pace few can control. And when success moves that fast, it brings more than applause. With fame came pressure, expectations, constant attention that never truly switches off. Cameras followed her movements. Headlines analyzed her expressions. Every decision, what she wore, who she met, where she went, became part of a public narrative she didn't fully control. For Honor, the spotlight was bright, but it was also overwhelming. She had already lived through public relationships before. She understood how quickly genuine emotion could be transformed into entertainment, how love could be reduced to headlines, rumors, and endless speculation, how moments meant to be private could suddenly belong to millions of strangers with opinions. And Honor learned something important from that experience. She didn't want to be defined by who she was dating. She wasn't interested in becoming known as someone's girlfriend. She didn't want her identity rewritten around another person's fame, no matter how powerful that fame was. Anna wanted the world to see her for her craft, her choices, and her growth as an artist. Her ambition was quiet but clear. She wanted longevity, respect, control over her own narrative. So, when a connection with Tom Cruise reportedly formed, Anna found herself standing at a crossroads many celebrities face but few navigate well. One path offered instant visibility, attention, and headlines. The other offered silence, boundaries, and emotional safety. Go public and risk losing control, or stay private and protect your peace. For Anna, the answer wasn't complicated. Her silence spoke volumes. This wasn't fear, it wasn't uncertainty, and it certainly wasn't weakness. It was a deliberate choice to protect something personal. While her professional life demanded everything from her, in an industry that rewards exposure, choosing restraint takes strength. Keeping things secret wasn't about hiding. It was about self-respect. It was about understanding that not every chapter needs an audience, and not every connection needs public approval. Anna knew that once a story becomes public, it can never be taken back. Words get twisted, narratives get created, truth becomes optional. So she chose boundaries instead, asterisk in doing so. Anna de Armas sent a quiet but powerful message, one that resonates far beyond Hollywood. Success doesn't mean surrendering your privacy. Love doesn't need validation. And protecting your peace is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of maturity. And for Anna, at this crucial moment in her journey, that choice mattered more than anything else. When you look at their lives together, the secrecy doesn't feel suspicious at all. In fact, it starts to make perfect sense. Tom Cruise carries the weight of decades of fame so intense that it has shaped nearly every aspect of his personal life. He moves through the world with the awareness of someone who knows that even a single photograph can become a headline, and a single moment can be misunderstood forever. His past has taught him that public attention rarely comes without consequences. Anna de Armas, on the other hand, carries a very different weight: the hunger of a rapidly rising career. She stands at a point where every role matters, every decision is strategic, and every public narrative can influence her future. She isn't protecting a legacy, yet she's building one. Together, their realities create a fragile balance. If their connection had gone public, it wouldn't have been treated like a simple relationship. It would have become a spectacle, an age gap debate, a power dynamic discussion, endless comparisons between past and present, success and ambition. Every glance would be analyzed, every silence would be questioned, every rumor would be stretched into a storyline. And once the world enters a relationship, it never leaves quietly. Instead, secrecy allowed something almost impossible in Hollywood. Normalcy. It allowed conversations without microphones hidden nearby, moments without photographers waiting at a distance, time without the pressure of expectations or public judgment. In that quiet space, there were no headlines to perform for, no roles to play, no narratives to defend. Just two people experiencing something real, however long or short that experience may have been. And perhaps most importantly, secrecy allowed clarity. Some relationships are not meant to last forever. They aren't written to become fairy tales or public declarations of love. Instead, They serve a different purpose. They teach. They reveal. They help people understand what they need and what they don't. Keeping their connection private gave both Tom and Honor the freedom to listen to their own emotions, without outside influence. No pressure to prove anything. No fear of disappointing fans. No obligation to turn a moment into a commitment just because the world was watching. In a way, privacy gave the relationship honesty. It allowed them to experience it for what it was, not what others expected it to be. In a culture obsessed with visibility, secrecy is often misunderstood. People assume it means fear, doubt, or deception. But sometimes it means the opposite. Sometimes it means intention, awareness, respect. And in this case, secrecy was not about hiding love. It was about respecting it, respecting the moment, respecting the boundaries, respecting the fact that not everything meaningful needs an audience. In Hollywood, where almost everything is performative, choosing silence is rare. But when you understand the lives Tom Cruise and Ana de Armas were living at that moment, their decision becomes clear. They weren't running from the spotlight. They were protecting something human from becoming a spectacle. So, why did Tom Cruise and Ana de Armas keep their relationship so secret? The answer may be simpler and deeper than most people expect. Because sometimes the most meaningful connections don't need an audience. They don't need approval, applause, or constant attention to feel real. Some bonds are strongest when they exist quietly, protected from noise, judgment, and expectation. Their story reminds us of something powerful, something we often forget in a world that demands visibility at all costs. Not every love story needs validation from the outside world. Not every connection needs to be explained to strangers. And not every chapter needs to be permanent to be important. In today's culture, relationships are often measured by how publicly they are displayed. Social media posts become proof of affection. Public appearances become symbols of commitment. Silence is misunderstood as absence. Privacy is mistaken for secrecy. But Tom Cruise and Ana de Armas challenged that narrative simply by choosing not to participate in it. Their silence was almost revolutionary. It showed maturity, the understanding that real emotion doesn't require performance. It showed awareness, the knowledge that public attention can distort something delicate. And it showed emotional intelligence, the ability to protect something meaningful, instead of exposing it to unnecessary pressure. Whether their relationship was brief or deeply meaningful, it served its purpose for both of them. Not every connection is meant to last forever. Some enter our lives to teach us clarity, to offer growth, to reflect where we are at a specific moment in time. And those connections matter just as much. By keeping their relationship private, Tom and Ana allowed it to be honest. There were no expectations to meet, no narratives to defend, no audience to satisfy, just two people experiencing something real without the weight of public opinion, shaping their choices. And maybe that's the real reason it stayed secret, because it was never meant to be entertainment. It wasn't a headline. It wasn't a brand. It wasn't a story written for public consumption. It was personal. In a world that constantly demands access, choosing boundaries is a form of strength. Choosing silence is not avoidance, it's intention. And choosing privacy is sometimes the most respectful decision two people can make. Their story isn't about what the world didn't see. It's about what they protected. Because, in the end, some things are more meaningful when they belong only to the people living them. And maybe that's the biggest lesson of all. It wasn't for us. It was for